to everybody out there. This is We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I shall be your host for this evening. Tonight is it's a work in progress edition of the show, which, as people who have listened before or haven't listened before, this is where we take a wonderful person from the board gaming industry and I attempt to sound intelligent by having a conversation with them. Now, joining me tonight is a gentleman by the name of Brad Talton Jnr, who is from Level99 Games. And you have maybe heard on previous episodes myself and Colin wax lyrical about a certain game that Level99 Games make, which is Pixel Tactics, which we love. So, good evening, Brad. Thank you very much for coming along.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
That's good. And how are you this evening? Are you well?
Well, I'm doing well. It's only afternoon here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where our
cool.
Level99 Games corporate headquarters is stationed, which is my home office in my garage. So we're not as big as you might think. This is a relatively small operation. Me, our graphic designer, our two artists, two programmers that work remotely. But we get along. We make a few cool games that we like to think they're pretty cool.
Oh, cool. So there's always seems to be some kind of continual activity going on with kind of Level 99. If it's not something to do with Battlecon, there's always seems to be a little bit of a connection with Pixel Tactics and stuff like that. But what we like to do at We're Not Wizards is we like to kind of go back into the past and find out a little bit more about how you got into the hobby in the first place, and then take a look at the present, and then jump into the future to see if there's anything else that could be on the horizon that people would like and love and sell a major organ for. So how did you get into the hobby, first of all?
Well, this may be relevant because I always did want to be a wizard, but I didn't want to be a wizard. So I went for the next best thing and decided to be a board game designer. I've been doing board game design about as long as I can remember. I grew up with video games as a kid, and I got my Game Boy and my NES, and eventually, I got a Super Nintendo, and I always wanted more games because I always wanted whatever the latest game was in Nintendo Power. I was definitely a Nintendo kid. And
what was your favorite game on the Super Nintendo?
Super Nintendo, probably Chrono Trigger is the game I sunk the most hours into, followed by Secret of Mana. Yeah. And then maybe Final Fantasy VI, which was 3 back then, but now it's 6 apparently.
Yeah. I was that generation as well. I can't even begin to think the number of hours I should have been outside playing something when I was inside kind of playing Super Nintendo, and especially Secret of Mana. It was a glorious game. So
it was good. Well, whenever I want a new game, and my parents did not feel like buying it for me because they were like $60 back then, as they are now. Yeah. They would say, "Why don't you just make your own?" And I had paper and colored pencils and tokens and punch boards, and they'd give me all the art supplies I wanted. So I was like, fine, I'll just make a board game. And so I'd make board game versions of the video games that I wished I had, and just by reading the descriptions in the magazines and figuring out how the game worked, I would make a board game of it. And then my parents would play these with me, and so I kind of got a taste of game design, and especially of like translational game design, of taking a concept and moving it from a digital space to an analog space very early on, and I've been doing that for most of my life.
So your first what kind of games did you make then? Have you still got them? Are they games that you've gone back to again and again and kind of remade, or there's one that stands out? Yeah,
a couple. Some of my really good ones, I had a Pokemon Legacy style game, I guess is the way to say it, like, because your Pokemon got stronger as you played the game by like marking on the cards, if you leveled them up, then we'd check off a few more boxes and I got extra hit points. And this was back in the 90s when I did this, so it was like 93 or so before the Game Boy game came out.
All right, okay.
but nobody wanted to play it because after you played it 10 times, your Pokemon were so strong that you could beat anybody who hadn't played it already, and the conclusion was foregone. You were just grinding at that point, which I guess was also true to the
so you were like
the video game.
You were like the first gym leader then.
I guess so. I didn't play. I didn't think it'd be fair for me to play.
Yeah.
So I had like some trainer Pokemon that you could fight against because I didn't mind losing. I just wanted to GM it for people.
What did you do with the art? Did you hand draw all the art, or did you use?
I would hand draw every card in the game. They were all done with index cards. Yeah, I had a Bomberman game that went over pretty well. I might remake that someday.
Please.
Yeah, I had a GoldenEye 007 board game. That one didn't turn out so well.
Well, I mean, one of these games that hasn't aged, because if you look at GoldenEye nowadays, it's a bit... But apparently, if you get it working on a PC through emulation, it runs like an absolute beast, and it's really, really fun to play with mouse controls.
I mean, it's a great game. It's a really great game. It was always pretty great. I mean, the graphics don't quite stand up, but the gameplay was good back then, and it's probably still good now. Did you
play? Was it the Super Bomberman then? Was that where the Bomberman influence came from?
I played Atomic Bomberman, which was the PC version.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, but I also played 64, and that was a lot of fun.
And what did the board game that you did? Because I was a big Bomberman fan. I remember having the multiplayer game and setting the bombs to infinite and setting the size of the explosions to infinite, and then just seeing how long you would last before you got destroyed. Which is milliseconds.
Yeah, it was always a like that arena type competition. Not the story based Bombermans or the puzzle based ones, but it was always player versus player was the one that I did, and I had all these like cool bombs like ice bombs and poison bombs that leave a persistent cloud on the field, or all sorts of other things. I can't remember. I think there was like a black hole bomb that would suck you in every turn as the fuse was ticking down. Stuff like that, like crazy stuff that you probably wouldn't get in a video game. But I always like to to add my extra 2 cents to the game's concept.
So do you in the case of ideas, have you just got to look through the kind of the back catalogue of your mind and say, well, let's go and do this next, so let's go and do that next, kind of thing? Because you said that's some imagination to come up with all the things that you've had when you were younger, anyway.
Well, I think that everything to some extent is a revision of other ideas, or is a rehash of other ideas. And I think the more media you absorb, and the more games you play, and the more that you take in, the more you'll be able to create. And so, like the idea for an ice bomb. I think an ice bomb exists in Bomberman 64. I don't know about a black hole bomb, but we know what a black hole is, and we know what a bomb is, and it seems interesting to combine the two. So there you go.
Yeah, that seems like a natural progression. I mean, why not? Why not?
So you just got to soak up as much as you can of everything.
So was there only ever one? I take it there was only one copy of the Bomberman game, one copy of the Pokemon game. You didn't kind of make lots and lots of these little ones.
I did not make a whole bunch. I made enough to play with my friends or my parents, whoever was playing, and because I was only 8, 12, like those kind of ages, and so I had no commercial ambition for this thing. I just wanted to play a game with my parents or my siblings or my friends. And so there's one copy of each of these, and they're sitting up in my mom's attic somewhere.
So they still exist.
Hopefully, I believe they still exist.
That'd be so cool.
She says someday she'll sell them and make $1 million. I don't know about that.
I think there would be people...
What hopes?
I don't know. I think there would be people out there that would love to just see kind of the 8 or 12-year-old Brad's, the way his mind works. Because, I mean, is that the trend that continued then as you got older, or did you start to move into kind of like the normal... Well, you would say the more commercially available cardboard. I mean, where did your journey go after that? Well,
I got in high school. I got into Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic the Gathering, and so I learned what CCGs were, and then I said, oh well, I can make one of these, and so I made a couple CCGs back in my high school days, and that was mostly the kind of game I made because I had friends that played CCGs, and so I said, well, instead of spending $3 on a pack of cards, I'll spend $1 and print you a a pack of cards at Office Max, and we can then play, this CCG that I've made with all of our favorite characters from TV or anime or whatever, and we did that, and that was a lot of fun.
So what was the theme then? I mean, what kind of stuff did you do?
Oh, it was we were all big anime nerds in high school, and so it was all of our favorite animations that we were watching at the time, and everybody had their own favorite, and so they wanted a deck based around their favorite characters. And
would you print them out and then would you print them out, or were you still doing hand drawn stuff?
By that time, I had gotten a copy of Photoshop, and I was able to make the cards and print them out. Because with a CCG with 60 cards, you can't hand draw. No. I couldn't hand draw all that. The Pokemon guys were like one card, and Bomberman. Well, I was a kid, I had a lot of time, but in high school, I needed to mass produce. So
exactly,
I got into digital.
You needed to upscale the operation.
Well, and also you wanted to put the actual art from your shows on there too, and you can't do that by hand. So I progressed to that. When I got to college, I learned that there was actually a hobby board and card game industry. Like, I didn't realize there were games like Settlers of Catan or like Flux or Arkham Horror or any of that stuff. I didn't learn about that stuff until I was 18, 19 in college at my college game club. And then I realized, there's like people who do for a living what I've been doing for fun all my childhood. And then I was like, maybe I'd really like to do this for a living. Maybe I can find my way into this industry somehow.
That's just to be kind of like already doing it, and then not to be aware that there was a kind of. It was kind of strange.
It was kind of wild. Like when I learned that, it was a little bit baffling that to see something that was so close to what you were already doing.
So, So did you then spend some time when you got to college? Did you get into the harder cardboard then, like a lot of kids did?
I mean, I played. I started with board games, and I think the first game I got was Cannibal Pygmies in the Jungle of Doom, one of the Z-Man B-movie card games.
All right, okay, yeah.
And shortly after that, Dominion came out. Shortly after I got into the hobby, and then I got Small World. So I started getting into some of the more gateway type of games, and then I started learning about mechanics and genres and Euro versus Ameritrash and all these kind of different conventions that we these constructs that we have in the board game world.
Did the creation continue then? I mean, now that you're exposed to like all these other things that you could be doing, were you like, was your mind completely blown as to what you could be doing then?
Yeah, I started working on card games. I did another CCG in college, but I didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of things. So I wanted to get into video games. That was what I went to college to try and do, was to do video games. And I got a CS degree, and I started working with a contractorship doing iOS development, and we were supposed to branch into games, and I was going to be the head of their games department. But then it was 2008, and the market crash happened, and so my company had to cut like everyone. Like 3/4 of the staff were gone, and our not yet formed games department was part of that. So I was out of there, and then so I started doing independent work, and then while I was doing that, I found out like the Kickstarter revolution happened, and I saw Imminent Domain on Kickstarter, and then I was thinking, well, I could do that. And the game I was working on at the time was Battlecon, and so I fixed up Battlecon. I got a couple of different independent artists that I knew, friends from high school and college, to draw me some characters, and then we put it up on Kickstarter, and the rest is history.
This is just. It's really... Do you know what the strange thing is? If you'd been born 5 years earlier, or potentially 5 years later, you might have missed where you are, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all... There's some degree of, the combination of environment and, and everything. But yeah, I certainly would be someone else if I was raised differently.
Yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, I mean, it just makes it's just really interesting. I mean, how long was Battlecon sitting in your head before it reached a kind of I mean, how long were you working on it for before it was?
I had wanted to do a fighting board game since college, but the mechanics had not really fallen into place. And there was one day when I was playing BlazBlue, which is a fighting game. System Works. I was playing that, and I thought, like all the characters have their heavy punch, and all the characters have their light punch and their throw, but they all have kind of different ranges and different power and different priority on these things. Why don't I just separate those two elements? Separate those two elements apart: the basic attack and then the style of attack, and make those two separate parts. And that's when Battlecon all clicked together for me. And then the unique abilities that characters had were inspired by the drive mechanic in BlazBlue, where everybody has their own different sort of special weapon. And so the rest from there was just trial and error, working out how the stat matrix was going to work and all that sort of stuff.
So, I guess for those people that haven't, they might have heard, they've heard of us talking about Pixel Tactics, but they've maybe not stepped into Battlecon. What would you say? How would you describe it to people? You said it's a card-based fighting game.
I mean, it's a card-based fighting game. I would actually, for the gamers out there, I would liken it more to the fighting fantasy battle books, or like Ace of Aces, the Alpha Minority games, where you have a book full of different moves, and you use a move and your opponent uses a move, and then you compare how that changes your situation. I don't know, are you familiar with these? The old dogfighting game books that they have?
It's a little bit. I mean, it's probably, even for the guys out there, it's worthwhile kind of explain. They basically, you select a move, you each sit there and go, right, I'm going to use this move. They say they're going to move that move, and then you see kind of what kind of effect that has. Does it have an effect on your different characters' stats, or how does that work?
Yeah, it may affect your stats. Like if, say, we're two planes and we're flying directly at each other.
Yeah.
And you can choose whether to fly straight, to go up, to go down, to do a U-turn, a barrel roll, all those things. So say I select a maneuver, fly straight on, and you select a maneuver which is, like a bank left.
Yeah.
So I would fly straight, you would bank left, and suddenly now our situation is that we're flying side to side, and then we can select another move, and so forth, until we get to a position where we can start shooting at each other. And the goal of the game is to get the nose of your plane facing the body of your opponent's plane. And as soon as you do some damage to them. And if you do enough damage, then you take them out.
Take them out, yeah. Okay.
And the position of the body that you can look at is going to determine how much damage you do. If you can look at them right from the top down, you have a huge, shot spread, so you do more damage. If you're looking at them from, like a 3/4 tail view, you don't have quite as much to hit. And if you're looking at them straight from the tail, they definitely can't shoot you, but you don't have a very big hitbox either.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of little things to it. And so what Battlecon does is it takes that matrix of resolution and it kind of resolves it all in an automated way, in a way that's not bounded by the math of the game. So in these old battle books, you had a big grid of how the moves interacted with each other, and each move interacted with each other move in some specific way. And Battlecon automates that so that you don't have to do reference charts.
So is this to make it, because obviously if it's a fighting game, you want it to be fast moving. So you want to strip out as much of the stuff that can slow kind of everything down.
I thought of Battlecon more as a fighting game when I made it, but now when I approach it, I think of it more as a general sort of martial arts dueling game, and not so much. It's not trying to really replicate the arcade fighting action. It's more trying to replicate a wide variety of different fighting styles and different toolkits and stuff like that. So I think it's more about the variety. And then with Exceed, we actually tried to capture the speed of the arcade fighting with that game, which is kind of our latest fighting game. But they have a different goal to each one of them.
So how would you describe Exceed then? I mean, one of the things we like to do at We're Not Wizards is just for people that haven't heard of, people that haven't heard of Battlecon or people that haven't heard of Exceed, I'd like them to have just get an overview of what they can expect and maybe, entice them to pick them up. Because we like to kind of, I guess, get as many people involved in the game, in the kind of the board game hobby as possible. So this is why we kind of like speaking to the creators themselves, because it's kind of different reading the kind of the sales pitch, the blurb that you would get on the back of the box, compared to hearing kind of like the actual directly from the passion of the creator. But you said, sorry, you said that you were looking to kind of speeding up the game with Exceed. So how does that play differently then?
So with Battlecon, what we found was that that it simulated this battle pretty easily, and you have this wide variety of moves, but it's very calculated, very precise. It's almost like chess in the way that you can see all your opponent's possibilities, and you have to choose the best of your options based on what their best option is, and vice versa. And the real-time nature, or the simultaneous selection nature, that complicates things even more. So it's a very cerebral sort of game. And when I played it and I enjoyed it, but what I really wanted to get was a game that would capture the kind of fast-paced arcade fighter feel, where you're flying around doing all these moves as quickly as possible. And so I needed a game that was not full information. And so with that in mind, we created Exceed. And Exceed is sort of like it feels more like a CCG. So if you're from the CCG background, everything will feel really familiar. You have a deck to draw from, you have discard pile, you have a hand, you have some hand management. You take turns back and forth, so the players pass their priority back and forth. And there's a lot of different things you can do each turn, but they're all very simple and very quick. And so you take a turn, you're done, your opponent takes a turn, done, back and forth until one of you decides to play a strike. And then there's that critical moment of impact where the two attacks meet, and then you go back to this back and forth game that's really fast paced. And so you don't have to do a lot of really heavy thinking. It's more about analyzing what's advantageous in the situation you're in, and what the odds you think that your opponent has something to beat you and will play the thing that beats you, and vice versa. So there's a little bit of counterplay, but it's much more about your your type A, your direct what's my first order strategy, much less than what's my third order strategy, which is more how Battlecon plays. So if you're more of a board game chess person, Battlecon. If you're more of a CCGer, then Exceed.
And how much playtesting do you go through? I mean, how are you at the point where there's no point in you playing kind of Exceed because you're just the best at it? Or, I mean, how much playtesting do you have to do to get this kind of balanced? Or is it something that's continually needing to kind of maybe be, you consider tweaking, or you're always looking at revisions, or, are there things that you would even change now, or are you continuing to change about the system? Because I noticed that Battlecon, there's been new expansions been coming out for that. I mean, is it? Yeah,
we do. I mean, balance is kind of a dialogue with the fans, and you have to. First of all, there's a very different set of skills you need for balancing versus design.
Yeah,
and there's another different set of skills you need for balancing versus mastery. And so the players, we consult our lead tournament players when we do a new Battlecon or an Exceed set.
Yeah.
And try to get the best results from them to say, like, is this going to play right? Is this fun to play? Is this balanced to play? But internally, when I'm developing, I'm looking for, is this fun to play? Is this interesting to play? Does it bring something new to the game? And then if all those are yes, then we go to balancing, because you can generally balance anything, but it's no good to balance something that's not fun to start with.
No.
So we do the design, then we go to the balancing, and that kind of goes back and forth, because you release a product and then you find, okay, this character is a little too strong or a little too weak, and as your meta solidifies, the strong characters continually rise further and further to the top, and the weak characters push further and further to the bottom.
Yeah.
And so you have to either redesign or deprecate your characters. So, for example, like with Exceed, we have licensed sets, and so we probably are not going to rebalance those characters. We're just going to rotate them out with a set rotation type mechanic. But with Battlecon, it's a perennial thing. Battlecon War will probably always be in print. Devastation will probably always be in print. And so we keep revising those characters when we come out with a new edition.
Do you ever get kind of nerf rage then? Because, I mean, it's something you see a lot in video games. I mean, you see it every time something changes in like say Overwatch or something. Why did you change this character, guy? Why didn't you change this one?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly do, but our fans are pretty close knit, and so they know when something is too strong. I don't think anybody would say, like Eric is known to be the most powerful character in Battlecon, and I don't think anybody would say no, don't nerf Eric. He's my favorite because he's been banned in tournaments forever. I think people would like to play him again. Also, we're on a much slower scale than video games. Like a patch for a board game is probably going to be with the edition change, which is usually every 2 to 3 years. Once we sell out of a print run, we do the new print run and the new edition.
Yeah.
So it's not very tough. The tough part of it is conversions conversion kits because you can't just upload a new patch to somebody who
No. You've got to have people. I guess you've got to have people's buy-in, and all it takes is somebody to say, "Well, we're not interested in doing this. We don't like it." And yeah, I mean, I must be if you're obviously like pushing towards having something that you're kind of wanting to change on a regular basis, it's like you kind of must move like at a much slower pace than the normal kind of, as you were quite rightly saying, you can't just patch it up, stick a patch out, and then let people have to deal with the changes in it. It can be obviously changes to how people play in tournaments and stuff like that as well. I have a question for you though, because I think I mentioned in the green room, our fabulous green room, which is still beige, but now has and still has Spider-Man on the wall, but now has a picture of the Fourth Road Bridge, which I mentioned on our previous episode. That my good friend Niki was asking a question, and Niki was dying to speak to you tonight, but because she is also on the other side of the world and because of work commitments, she couldn't jump on and say hello. But she asked the question with regards to Battlecon: are there any tactics? Now, I'm not putting any pressure on you, Brad, but she wants to kick her brother's ass up and down the living room. Okay. So, are there any killer tactics you think she could, and if you're Niki's brother, you're not allowed to listen to this. So,
I see. Well, we I feel like we spend a lot of time and energy to make sure that the answer to that question is no. But what I would say is to keep changing up your play method. Try different things. Like if you play with, for example, like the Strikers variant or some of the arenas or some of the what's the word? Like some of the armory variants, like give yourself some new things to play with in all the little expansions, and with Devastation had a lot of these in the box. Then you can keep things moving, and you can keep your opponent from knowing what you are, because a lot of times you fall into this into a meta where I have my best 2 or 3 characters, your opponent has their best 2 or 3 characters, and you kind of know all the matchups. Yeah. And so if you want to mix that up, then use the variants, and then you don't have to get rid of your favorite character. You can just see them in a new light.
So there you go, straight from, I'm not going to say horse's mouth because that sounds rude. That's like me saying, hey, here's Brad Talton. He's got a horse for a mouth.
It's the first time I've been accused of having horse face, I guess. I don't know if that's a thing or not. But.
I know that could sound so bad. It's just like all of a sudden, hey, Brad's. I'm sorry, Brad's gone. Brad hung up the call. I'm sorry, the other person has disconnected the call after you said he had equine features. When you play Battlecon, and because it's a fighting game, and are you a bit of a video game kind of fighting fan then? You mentioned Blaze Blue. Have you kept up with like your Street Fighters and other things of this world?
I haven't played as much recently as I did way back when I was developing Battlecon. Mostly I play whatever is going to... I try and play whatever is going to help inspire me on what I'm working on currently. Mm-hmm. So, like when Millennium Blades was in progress, I played a lot of Hearthstone, I played Magic the Gathering, I played a lot of the old CCGs that I played back in high school to kind of get back into the mindset of that. Mm-hmm. With the current game I'm working on, the current large game I'm working on is called Seventh Cross, and it's sort of a roguelike Monster Hunter adventure game where you're all these exorcists going out and hunting monsters in this Castlevania style world. And so for that, I'm playing a lot of Castlevania, a lot of Bloodborne, Dark Souls, you know, a bunch of roguelikes, you know, Darkest Dungeon, Dungeons of Dreadmore, Dungeons of Doom. These sound very similar, but they're actually very different games. But you get the idea. I try and
Darkest Dungeon
play...
is just... What do you think of Darkest Dungeon compared to
I thought it was
other?
really good.
I've got it sitting there since Christmas, and I was gonna dive into it, but I went back to Bloodborne again for a little bit. But
I've beaten everything in Bloodborne except the final boss of the DLC. I haven't gone back to take him out yet.
Was it the something Unborn or something like that?
The Orphan of Kos.
The Orphan of Kos, yeah.
It's pretty tough. I've seen people online like kill him in like under a minute, and I'm like, that's ridiculous.
It's like Lobos Jr. or something like that, who goes in and says, "Okay, I'm just going to punch him in the face." And he goes in
they do it like barehanded or with no armor or anything, and just perfect to the game. It's kind of silly. But I mean, my hunter is like a Tonitrus hunter, and so you'd think it would work really well against him, but none of the attacks actually stun him out. So
that's not good.
I'm not very good at dodging yet. Maria was the toughest. I had to play like 100 games to beat Maria, and eventually
really?
I had to go level up my blood tinge so that I could stun her, because my blood tinge hadn't been leveled up throughout the entire game up till then.
All right, okay.
I was pure strength arcane, and then I realized like, oh, I have to stun this boss to be able to win, and so I had to go back and level blood tinge to like 30 or something, and then I could actually shoot her and stun her. And then I could do viscerals and actually win the game.
So there you go. Yeah. There you go. Do you have connection with video games? I wasn't going to ask you to start talking about Dark Souls and Bloodborne, because there's a lot of fans of the podcast that are big kind of Dark Souls and Bloodborne fans. So, do you then have? Is there a Brad Talton Street Fighter like phrase for when you're about to go into battle? Do you know how you get the one wrestling?
I don't have any particular battle cry. No, I apologize. I do appreciate some some general purpose trash talk when I'm playing a fighting game, but nothing unique with mine.
What? I was expecting at least one or two. I was,
no, sorry. My usual cry is all right, rematch. I think I can beat that this time. I play Street Fighter the same way I play Dark Souls and Bloodborne. If my opponent beats me, then I want to play the same match again until I figure out how to deal with that strategy.
Actually win that thing. So you just go. So we're like, you're the kind of the 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then you're picking up the controller again and starting the fight.
I'm always up for a rematch.
Well, we have to think about one. I mean, I think if anyone's listening to this, and if you think that you have the perfect phrase for Brad to say before he goes into a match, then hit us up. Drop us a quick tweet. Mine was going to be obviously something about anti-wizards, which was going to be, "That's no magic on you, is it?" Something like that.
I see.
Actual nonsense. Exactly. Sorry, I just had to ask the question. It popped into my head, and if it pops into my head,
it's great.
Sometimes it comes.
I think maybe my battle cry is this vision of this guy sitting alone at a bar, going, "Another," and knocking on the counter, because that's kind of the way I play fighting games. I lose, and I'm like, "All right, one more."
Just come on, hand me over those nuts. Yes, I'm aware that other people have had their hands in them. Yes, I'm aware they've probably not washed their hands after the bathroom. But I've got used to the taste, so hand me them over. Give me the cashews as well, come on. And do you want any, was it scampi fries? Do they have that in?
They don't have that. I don't think they have that much in America.
No? You're bound to have kind of like little pork snacks though.
It's bar food is not really a big thing over here. We have tapas restaurants, but we don't have like a bar food culture, I think.
That's just not little bar snacks where you have, because over in the UK you have a cardboard thing, and it has like these horrible little things in bags which you see, you can tell how intoxicated somebody is by the number of bags of these things they've got through.
Okay.
And sometimes,
I think it's all nachos. It's all nachos out here in
Mexico. Is it nachos and cheese and guacamole and stuff like that?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. I mean, most of our bars out here are bar restaurants, and so it's just whatever you can get as a restaurant appetizer in an Americana style restaurant is what you eat as your bar food.
I guess, right, okay. Is something like moving on to, I was going to say, you could quite easily take Battlecon or Pixel Tactics potentially into a pub type situation. Would you say that, or would you say you need a little bit more space?
I would say that we have better games for the pub scenario. I would definitely bring Exceed over Battlecon to a pub, just because Battlecon has a lot of bits and bobbles. Exceed is all cards.
All right. Okay.
The game I would bring for sure is Dragon Punch, and that's our little micro game fighting game, because you can play that you play that without a table, so you don't have to put your cards on the bar, and you play it, and it takes like 5 minutes. So it's a little micro game, and you choose your attack, you place it in your hand, and then you show it to your opponent, and the two attacks interact in some way, and then they go on cooldown, and one of you takes damage, and some of your cards upgrade when you take damage. And you just try and knock your opponent out before they do the same to you. So it's the simple kind of fighting game aesthetic, but it repurposed for a travel size and for play. You can play this game effectively after you've been at the pub for a while, which is something you probably couldn't do for Battlecon or Exceed.
I don't know. I can imagine that. What have you got in your hand? What? What hand? What are you talking about? Oh, I thought these were just bar thingies. I'm sorry. I beat you.
That's not a coaster. That's my deck. What are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, I'm more of a I'm not much of the bar crawl type person. I'm more of the fine dining. My wife is a big fine dining person.
Right.
Has got me into it. So we go around to different restaurants and such. And that's our vacation is mostly visiting restaurants.
So what type of game would you take on a fine This is the Egon
time and place. Time and place. I think that I think there's that's not quite the scenario for a board game.
No.
I've seen people do it, but I wouldn't do it.
You just imagine them coming out and say, what would you like? So would you like the Papo Charneuf 1962? Yes, can I have that? And can you move this over because we're about to play Pixel Tactics? Thank you. So speaking of Pixel Tactics, because I've been dying to speak to you about Pixel Tactics, because it is I'm a man of a very small brain, and it takes a couple of times for me to understand kind of Pixel Tactics. Where did you come up with the idea for this? Because I've know people, and me and Colin spoke about this. We spoke about it a long time, well, not that long ago, maybe about 3-4 months ago, about Pixel Tactics, and we both think it's fantastic. But the Magic guys, the guys that play Magic, the couple of guys that we have seen play it, haven't liked it as much. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, and we took them outside and we slapped them about the head and told them don't be stupid, because it is a fantastic game. But it's one of these games that's really, really easy to pick up, and it's one of these games that takes a long time to kind of really, really get to grips with the meta on it. When you were designing it, or when you were thinking about it and putting it together, what were your thoughts behind it? Were you coming from a place in Magic the Gathering plus kind of thing, or what was your thoughts with that?
I think it started out that way. It originally was sort of a military civ type game where you actually had resources and materials that you were accumulating, and that was what allowed you to play the units. So you would get like science and metal and blacksmithing and all these kinds of different materials and magic, and then you would be able to upgrade your units or play your units, or if you played this unit and then he had like 4 boxes on him, but one box was if you had 1 magic, and the other box was if you had magic and blacksmithing, and the third box if you had magic and blacksmithing and science, the character would level up accordingly. Mm-hmm. That turned out to be a little too much, and so we looked for kind of what other sort of tactical games we could get, and the front row back row system of that original Civ game, where you could play as a character as a supporter or as a fighter, kind of morphed into the 3-row system that we have now, and that was sort of the birth of Pixel Tactics. It's most similar to a game called Soul Nomad by Nipponichi Software. And that is a game where it's in the Disgaea series, or it's in that same series of heavy SRPGs that they make. And that in that game you sort of build these units of guys, and you've, instead of fighting like one guy goes and attacks another guy, an entire unit attacks another entire unit, and that sort of formed the kind of core idea of maybe that sort of idea where you build out this unit of 9 guys and then they go and clash another unit, but let's give the player a couple different choices and some cool spells and some like more intense overarching abilities, because when you're in a board game and not in a video game, you can make a more complex effect or a more wild sort of effect that you can't do in a video game because it requires too much workaround.
Well, was it an intention to bring as much analysis paralysis to the table as you could possibly get?
It was a big obstacle to bring that down, and I think we did a pretty decent job with it, because the game is playable, and it wasn't always playable. But you look at a guy and you only need to worry about their top ability if you're in the front row, or you only need to worry about 2 of their ability bars, and you only have 3 to 4 guys in your hand, so you've got about 6 to 8 pieces of information you have to deal with. And so it's fairly easy to evaluate from a moment-to-moment standpoint which play is my optimal play, or rather, what does each of these plays accomplish for me? And if you don't see anything that's that good, then you just take the default draw card action and move on with life. Yeah, exactly. So it's I think it turned out pretty well. In that sense, it used to be like you could play your guys anywhere, and then you had to deal with like 4 slots of information every single turn on every single card. That was quite a lot.
It just worked. I mean, as I said, it worked. I don't mean to sound like the I love Brad. Here's my T-shirt saying I love Brad and Pixel Tactics. But I mean, if Colin was here, he'd be much worse than me, because every time Colin has played me, I've won once or twice. This suits his mindset, because he can look at a range of cards and you can actually see it is like Neo looking at the Matrix for the first time. You can see kind of like all the little green lines crossing over his eyes, and he knows exactly what he's meant to be doing. And then he says, right, I'm going to put this card here, and you're like, okay, that does absolutely nothing, until he's twinned it up with a card behind it, and he's put in his insignificant character is kind of like his commander in the middle or whatever, and then you realise that 4 moves in, he's just said, right, okay, I've just robbed you of 6 hit points just like that. And it's but the cards themselves, just to explain again to people, I mean, and listen, if you're not sure of Pixel Tactics, go back and listen to the episode that we did a while ago, because you'll hear Colin absolutely just write a love letter to a game that he has an awful lot of time for. But the idea is, unlike your traditional, even like your Dice Masters or your Magic or Netrunner of this world, rather than your cards having kind of one set of moves or one kind of power or anything like that, you have like a 3x3x3 grid, and Brad will shout at me if I'm wrong. And depending on where your character goes on the grid, that defines which power you can use. And then you have a captain, and your captain basically, you go in the middle, and they have a series of special moves which can have kind of almost an entire game changer kind of going on. Everything from, always guaranteeing you get a hit, to card effects, to boosting the guy in front, boosting to the guys to the side and stuff like that. And it becomes extremely, extremely tactical, but at the same time it's very, very fun. But the one thing I love about it is the artwork. Now, when you were deciding on the artwork, was there several kind of changes? Was there several decisions you went through? Or
it's actually quite the reverse. The artwork decided the game. Fabio Fontes made these sprites on a whim and said, "Look, Brad, I made these sprites for all the Battlecon characters." And I was like, I can make a game for that. And so it was born, Pixel Tactics.
Oh, fantastic.
So it started actually the other way around. This is probably the only game we've ever made that came from the art.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, like you're saying with Pixel Tactics, the gameplay, I mean, the key of the game is this emergent gameplay. You're going to have a hand of cards that you've never seen before, and you're going to have to figure out what the most optimal way to use each of these tools is to defeat your opponent. And you're probably going to have some global ability that you've only seen once or twice in all your plays from your captain.
That's the best thing about it. That is the fantastic
it changes
thing about
everything.
I mean, you've got all the cards, but then it's like, for people that are listening at home, when a card looks like, it's like a playing card. If you see like a king of hearts, whichever way you turn it around, you've got like the king of hearts. But the difference with Pixel Tactics, if you turn it one way, the character is a normal character. If you turn it the other way, then the character becomes like this captain and has a specific kind of special move. And every single character pretty much has has this ability to become a captain. And that is, that's massive. It's huge. It's really good fun. In terms of Pixel Tactics, you've released expansions. It's also very, very inexpensive for what you get as well.
Yeah, it's just $15 for the base game, which is a full deck of cards, and it's we priced it based on what we cost to make it. It's pretty cheap game to make, and so we try to give good content for the dollar value. And that's true in all of our games. Like in Battlecon, you get in Devastation you get 30 characters and 5 bosses, and it's this massive, like almost Fantasy Flight coffin box size box, and it's only $75. But there's really an unlimited amount of gameplay in there. My personal philosophy of board gaming is that the gameplay only exists in the space between discovery and mastery. And like, for example, take like your Street Fighter. Once 2 players get together and they know all the moves of their character and the opponent's character, then it's really just a question of reflexes and secret selection and who ate their Wheaties that morning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you kind of when the discovery ends and you're on that track to from towards mastery, it's kind of it's like you can see the path. You know where that leads. You're not going to learn anything new there, and there's still the thrill of victory and of getting better and of climbing that ladder, and that's a lot of fun. But it's not the kind of fun that a board game really delivers. You really want a video game for that kind of mastery experience, because you can play it iteratively really quickly. Board games take a lot longer. And so with building our games, I try and focus on the discovery experience, and I try and make it so that each game, each deal, each loadout is going to present a completely new experience to the players, something that they've never played before and that they're going to have to figure out as they play. And that's why we have all the crazy variants in Battlecon.
No, I mean,
the different leaders in Pixel Tactics. Yeah.
No, I mean, the funniest thing. Well, not the funniest thing, because Colin didn't laugh at the time. But the funniest thing that happened was that, and he said this as well, and he's still quite bitter about it and hasn't spoken to the guy for some time. But he played a guy called Liam, and Liam, who had played Magic a lot, and he played a lot of card games. This was the first time that he picked up Pixel Tactics, and Liam beat him consistently again and again and again, and Colin was not happy at this. But this was somebody that's experienced in the meta and how everything can work in Pixel Tactics, and somebody coming along who's got an experience of card games and just picking it up and going, right, boom, take that. I did laugh, I must admit, but you've got to do these things. What's in the future for Pixel Tactics then? I mean, I've seen Mega Man.
Mega Man Pixel Tactics is our next big thing, and we're going to be looking for more of these like licensed editions for Pixel Tactics that we can do, so we can expand our repertoire of characters without making everything our own property. So Mega Man Pixel Tactics is going to be coming out probably March, February. I don't know. I'm not in control of the production of that one. That one's in the hands of Jasco Games.
Yes,
but
yes.
But that's the next big thing coming out for Pixel Tactics, and then the next big thing, which will also probably be February, March, is going to be Pixel Tactics Online, and that's going to be PvP and PvE. Like you can play campaigns against the story mode of the game to collect cards, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So Pixel Tactics Online is coming out. Fabio's doing the animations and art for that right now, and they're super cool. They're looking really cool, and you can see a couple of them on our Twitter and Tumblr account or on Fabio's DeviantArt account.
Absolutely fantastic. I take it, is Mega Man coming to the UK?
So it's a little bit complicated. When you license a property like that, you have to buy the license for each different region.
Yes.
So the Europe region was not Jasco didn't buy the Europe region for various regions.
Okay.
Which means that they can't sell into Europe. But they can sell to distributors, and then the distributors can sell into Europe. So you'll get it at like tier 2 or tier 3 of the supply chain, which you do already. The only thing is that people in Europe will not be able to order from Jasco Games' own online store, which you probably don't want to do anyway because it's full MSRP, and they primarily are in the business of selling to retailers, not to consumers.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But yes, your cool stuff, your Spiral, Galaxy, whatever your online retailer is over there, they're going to have Mega Man Pixel Tactics, yes.
That's kind of made me grin. That's made me grin a lot. No. But the online game, that is very, very interesting because, I mean, it's kind of weird you talking about, you went to college, you studied. It's kind
of come full circle, yeah.
You kind of, the circle is complete.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous. Oh man, I can't tell you how cool this game looks. You just got to go see the screenshots.
Are you excited? I mean, are you really? I mean, we'll put links in. We'll put the links into the show notes, so we have notes to show. But yeah, I mean, anything else? I mean, just ping it over to me, and I shall make sure that the good people who are listening to us will have plenty to see. But I mean, are you kind of like, I've got to have a really interesting career so far, and now I've kind of gone back and I'm actually starting to make kind of video games. Has that kind of made you think, well, I could continue with both now? I mean, I think
it's important to do both because video games bring people to tabletop, and the tabletop bring people to the video games, and you also want to be you want to have some stability, and the more diversified your business portfolio is, the better. And this is one of the things I've learned with. Like last year we had or not last year, it's been 2 years now, we had a big issue where Pixel Tactics and Battlecon got held at port, and so we didn't have our two biggest products on store shelves for like 4 or 5 months. And so for 4 or 5 months we just didn't make money, and that was like, you can't do that in business. You can't just close your door for that long. So
was that health and safety checks that they're doing and stuff like that, or was that just got
I think up? it was just some negligence on the part of the factory producing it.
Oh my goodness.
Some miscommunication with the printer, and but if we had video games driving income at that time, we would have been a lot better off. And
you would have just been, here you go, let's put this on there, and people could have lapped it up without the distribution.
I mean, it's still not great when your product is delayed, but at least you have other things coming in, and so that's kind of what we want to do, is to keep ourselves insured against the future, and also bring games to people in whatever medium they prefer. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to do some comic books after I get done with all of the after the video games pan out. We'd love to do some comic books, and
this is when you say like, "Hi, I'm Brad Talton, and I sleep for 3 hours. I sleep for 3 hours a week."
I get a full night's sleep. I do occasionally work in my sleep. So,
have you ever come up with something and going, "This is it. It's farm your animals."
Oh yeah, if you go to sleep thinking about your current project, and you wake up with new ideas, it's a great thing. Yeah. And
the latest one you talked about was kind of like you're playing a lot of Castlevania. So what's have you got a name for that game then?
It's called Seventh Cross. That's the name of the Exorcist organization that the players are part of.
Cool.
And you are. It's this kind of alternate history 1930s world, and you are agents of this church who go around and fight monsters and keep humanity safe. And there's cool. This dark empire from 1,000 years ago that's seeking to revive the age of magic, the Dark Age, and so you have to basically go through these fortresses, these citadels of the old empire, and fight your way through monsters and unravel the plot together with all of your allies. So it's a cooperative, partly narrative, partly combat driven monster hunting adventure game.
So is it RPG? Is it miniatures? Is it card driven?
There's 3 ways to play. It has so you can explore where you are. You get a randomized castle that you go through. And some randomized bosses. You can play a scenario where your characters are persistent and your choices matter throughout like multiple games, kind of a soft legacy game where you don't actually damage cards, but you unlock things over time.
Okay.
And then the last way you can play is challenge, where you build the best possible character you can, and then you take on the toughest possible boss we can build for you and see if you can beat it.
Like boss rush or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's the boss rush doesn't, but the scenario and the adventure mode, they have some narrative parts where you explore the castle, you meet some challenges, you meet NPCs, you can interact with them, you can like fight them. Sometimes they're like, you meet an NPC, they offer to like, to give you, I don't know, like give you a new spell or something, and you're like, no, you're clearly evil, and you attack them, and they say, yes, I actually was evil, and they turn into a boss. and then you have to fight them. Or sometimes you're like yeah, sure, give me a hand, and they'll like join your party and give you a new spell or ability, or they'll say, ha, you fool, I was actually evil, and turn into a bigger boss. That sort of stuff can happen. And there's all the classic tropes. You gotta climb up a clock tower, you have to go into this deep underground caverns. Some of your characters are probably evil and will betray you halfway through. All the fun stuff. Just
the normal kind of Thursday night at the office type stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. So
when is that going to be a retail campaign? Is that a Kickstarter campaign? How are you going to get that out to the people?
It's going to be a big game, and we are going to Kickstart it later this year. It'll probably release actually next year in 2018.
Okay.
But we're hoping to have it in a state where it's finished up by the end of this year, and we're just writing the rest of the combat encounters and the rest of the adventure encounters and scenario book and stuff. And we have enough to show people and say, this is what the game's going to look like. This is the art and illustrations, and yeah, we've got a blurb of it on our upcoming site, which should be launched by the end of the day or by the end of tomorrow. And so you can read about the future of Set of Cross on there.
Ping us the link, and that'll definitely go in that'll go in really big font in the show notes.
Awesome.
No, definitely, absolutely. Well, there you go. I didn't realize you were going to be launching the site. That's really good timing. Probably by the time this goes out, the site will be up and running. So that is really, really, really good. In terms, Kickstarter, because we speak to, and we have spoken to various different people in the past about the Kickstarter, is it the preferred method for you at the moment?
I think you have to look at the game that you're trying to make and what Kickstarter will bring to that. We've traditionally been doing a couple Kickstarters a year, and I think we're going to probably slow that down a little bit because we want to make a lot of games, but we have a lot of small box games. We don't need to Kickstart every single thing we make. We can just print things, and so we want to go to Kickstarter when it's a really big game and it's something that our fans can add to by contributing to the project. So if we have like stretch goals that we can add to a game, if we have things that we could include via backer poll or that sort of thing, or if the game is just too expensive for us to print outright, then we would want to go to Kickstarter with it. But if it's something like a small box game, like the next Pixel Tactics, we probably would not want to do a full Kickstarter for that.
No.
Yeah. But
actually, you've got a really good fan base though now. I would have thought. There's a lot of people that.
Oh yeah. And we do, but we don't. If I put up like Pixel Tactics 6, I would say, okay, we need $10,000 to print Pixel Tactics 6, it's $15, a pledge, and we'll throw in 5 promo cards when you get it. And then, like 500 people would do it, and that would be the end of that. And or 1,000 people do it, and that'd be the end of that. There would be nothing really exciting beyond the product itself that we have to offer. But like with Mega Man Pixel Tactics, we had the third box that we were able to offer to all our backers. We had all the promo cards. We eventually got the Star Droids that we were able to offer to backers. So we got to do all this really cool extra stuff, and that's what made it interesting as a Kickstarter project. And I think that unless you have interesting additional offerings, that Kickstarter is not the way to go. Or if a game's really huge and we can't afford it, like Millennium Blades was just too big to print without Kickstarter.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other side of it as well, if you've got like sources of income and the Pixel Tactics Online, if that takes off, when it takes off, more likely, not if, when, is that going to be like your normal kind of free-to-play model? Are you not releasing those details yet? Is it going to be like a one-off?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about it. The way it works is it's primarily a PvE experience. So if you've played the Hearthstone adventures, or if you've played like solo challenges in Duelist, you kind of have an idea of how that would work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you start the game, you get a free starter deck, and it comes with 2 leaders and 30 heroes, and it's constructed. So you build your own deck. You get an adventure, and the adventure has like 9 different stages. And in each one of those stages, you beat the normal mode, you get a copy of a hero, you get a new hero. You beat the advanced mode, you get that stage's leader into your leader collection. And then if you beat it on the challenge mode, then you get either a second copy of the hero or a shiny version of the hero or something like that. And every month or so, we're going to release a new world. So you'll get 9 new stages, effectively 9 new cards, 9 new heroes, 9 new leaders that you can get. And then you just pay $1 or $2 or $3, whatever the math, the economy comes out to for producing those. And you get a new chapter in your game, you get some new cards, and you get a new story mode to play through, an adventure.
Sounds really, really good. Fun.
Yeah. And when is this out? There is PvP. There is PvP, and there's rankings and leaderboards, and every month at the end of the rankings, at the end of the rankings, you get like shiny cards and special. You can get playmats in this game, so like when your cards go down on the table, your side of the board will look different than the opponent's side of the board. You can get special card backs. You can have characters that do like an alternate animation when they come into play, or they sparkle or whatever. So there's a lot of cool vanity stuff you get through the PvP side.
And I guess with it being the medium that it is, being video games, video games, it means you can. I know, what's that? You can experiment with stuff and see how it looks, and then not have to, I guess, run a print run to see how it's going to turn out. You can stick it out there and get some feedback from people as well.
We can do our testing in house.
Cool. That's good. Yeah. People listening tonight, if they have listened, and I mean, your enthusiasm has definitely come across tonight. If people want to keep in contact, if they've listened tonight and went, well, Richard's done as usual, but Brad, now there's a guy we need to keep an eye on. How would people, because I've heard people talk about me. How would people keep in contact and keep an eye on what yourself and Level99 Games are up to?
Well, you can visit on Level99Games.com. I'm also have Twitter at Level99 Games. Tumblr.level99 or Level99Games.tumblr.com. There's sort of a pattern to these. If you can figure it out, it works on just about any social network that you that you're on.
There'll be a prize for the ball. You can get.
So come and visit and follow us. Check out our stuff. If you follow our newsletter, we often send out specials and coupons, especially now that we're launching our new store this year. So
I saw your last. I saw your last coupon, and I didn't grab it.
It's probably good. That coupon crashed the site, which is why we're getting a new store this year, because that coupon was so good that 3,000 people tried to log on and get it, and it crashed the site.
I saw that. I saw the follow-up kind of oops. the site went down a bit, guys. You just have to hold on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm probably in the UK, so it probably wasn't applicable anyway. But I was like, oh, I'll have a look at that later.
Well, in the UK, I think the shipping is more than the cost of the discount you get. So.
I know.
But yeah, we give out stuff, and sometimes it's a good deal in the UK too. So
it's worthwhile following you on Twitter because you're genuinely enthusiastic about what you're involved in, and your story as to how you got into the hobby is very, very interesting. And it's really good to hear somebody that's kind of doing exactly what they've been doing since they're about 8 years old. I mean, that's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's and I love to keep in touch with the fans. We have a fan community. Sometimes people write fan fiction for the games. I've seen fan art. It's all really fun to to see what people are doing with the stuff we make. I personally am really into like the world building side of things. I like to make a good board game, but I really like to develop a unique world and the game is more of a tool to bring people into that world. And so with the Battlecon characters, the world of Indians and our upcoming 7th Cross World, it's really neat to see how people are enjoying those. And so if you want to get in touch with me and talk to me personally, you can do it just as easy as Richard did, and just contact me on email or Skype or whatever, and we'll chat.
Have a chat. If you want to keep a contact on what we do, we are also all over internets as well. If you search for We're Not Wizards, so it's on. You can see us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. We're on Instagram at We're Not Wizards. We're on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. You can email us, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk. Thank you very, very much for your time, Brad.
Thank you for having me.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and it's really, really nice to speak to somebody who's been involved, who's basically created a game that you've sat down at the table and played, as with a lot of the guys that we've spoken to. So I really appreciate you taking the time out your day. I've had an awful lot of fun. The only thing to remember is that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Brad?
I suppose not.
Definitely not. Yeah. So it's a goodbye. It's a goodbye from me. I guess you could say something in a fighting thing. Do you know what I mean? Take that, you hat-wearing magic man. And then Brad's.
I don't have any. I can't follow that. That. You're in a league of your own with that.
That's just like. I'm going to make some up. Do you know what I mean?
Oh man.
My name's Brad, and I just kicked your ass bad.
Okay, he said that, not me. I didn't do that voice. I just want to make that clear for all our listeners out there.
Yeah, the terrible one was me. So it's I guess all that's left to say is it's a goodbye. It's a goodbye from both of us. So it's a goodbye from Brad.
Goodbye. Have a good night.
And it's a goodbye from me. Stay safe, have fun, and fight hard and well. Watch out for those high punches. But until next time, bye-bye for now. Bye.
Bye-bye.